All right, good evening. An intentional delayed start of game.
The base pretty short.
Yeah, but I'm not even getting there. So Shabbos will be fine. Yeah. Where are we starting? Today we're learning Maseches Gittin Daf Lamed Amud Aleph. We're starting 3 lines down, excuse me. Hahu de Amar, there was a man who said, Ilo asina atlasin yomen lehavegita. If I don't show up within 30 days, then this is your get. Asa, he did show up, upaske mavra. And when he got there, he was stuck by the bridge. We've seen this at least 2 other times in Shas. I don't remember where we saw this. I don't see anything on the side. Yeah. Oh, hahu. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Hahu, ksubis, and nadarm. Okay, yeah, that's right. Okay, so the guy gets stuck at the bridge. You could imagine in Chicago when the bridges are up, your cars, like you don't get there in time. So he gets stuck by the bridge. Amar lahu, he screams out, I'm back. Please don't divorce me from my wife. I love her. I was just out of town and I got stuck on the way back. Amar Shmuel, the hardliner, Shmuel says, Lo Shmei Matya, you are not in the city. And they are halachically divorced. Unbelievable.
So they have to go through the whole.
She's divorced. Whatever. She's divorced. If they want to get remarried again, he can't be a Kohen. Whatever. They gotta. Whatever. They're divorced.
Where are we?
We're on Lamed Amud Aleph, 5 lines down. Hahuda Amar Luhu. Another story. A man says, "Ilo faisina la ad tlasin yomen." If I can't convince her and appease her to stay with me within 30 days, lehavigita. Azal faisa. So he made every effort to try to appease her. Flowers and chocolates, whatever. Velo ifaisa. This doesn't seem. It doesn't say retroactive. No. Yeah, it's on day 30. It's a divorce on day 30. Yeah, it's a divorce on day 30. So he tried. Azal faisa. He tried to appease her. I'm sorry. Let's go to couples therapy. I'm really sorry. I'll stop doing all those things that are annoying. And velo ifasa. She was not able to be appeased. Amar of Yosef. If he would have cracked open the bank account and said, sweetheart, I'm going to give you a massive chunk of change. Just stay married to me. Wouldn't she stay? Wouldn't she be appeased? Okay, first of all, this Gemara is fascinating. The Gemara assumes that money does the trick. I would imagine if a relationship is bad enough that money wouldn't do the trick. This is version 1 of the Gemara. We'll see soon that there's another one. And Ikada Amri, the Gemara says a quarter of the way down, maybe it was different. Amr of Yosef, Midi Tarkeva de Dinari by Lemesavla. How far does he have to go to appease her? Does he have to go so far as to empty the bank account to give this massive amount of money to appease her? Hafaisa, Valoi Faisa, that's a din in her. That's an ones. Then they're not divorced because he did his part. Fascinating, because the divorce is on his terms, not on her terms. So the Gemara says, what's the difference between approach number 1 and approach number 2? Command Amar Yesh Onis Begittin. Approach number 2, the Ikada Amre, is where we say that there are onsim by Gittin, and therefore they're not divorced. And Command Amar Ein Onis Begittin, and therefore he has to go to the nth degree, give as much money as possible, whatever it takes to get her to stay married. There is no upper limit. Fascinating. Okay. Today's sugya, starting at this new Mishnah, is a challenging sugya, and we'll be learning right now from Mishnah to Mishnah as our bookends, and then we will call it a day. And on Shabbos at 5 p.m., we'll learn Lamed Aleph and Lamed Beis, and we will be okay. 5 p.m. It's early this week because we have a 6 o'clock family Shalosh. Okay, new Mishnah. Hamal v'mos es hakohen v'es halevi v'es ha'ani. Let's say that I'm a regular guy and I'm philanthropic. I like to help people. So I lend money to a Kohen, to a Levi, or to an Ani. These are people to whom I have to be mafresh things anyways. I have to give stuff to the Kohen when I'm mafresh from my agricultural world. Same for the Levi, and the Ani gets Meiser Ani. So the deal is Vlios mafresh alein mechelkan. So let's say that I get in my food. I've lent $1,000 to the Kohen. I get in my food, and the Meiser this week is $50 that I would give to the Kohen. So I keep it and I deduct 50 from the total. Now I owe him $950 from this week's portions. Same with the Levi, same with the Ani. Then mafresh alein bechezkas shehin kayamin. We assume that they're alive. No reason to assume that they're dead. We just are mafresh and we keep the money to ourselves. We don't assume that the Kohen or Levi died, or that the Ani became Ashir. Because remember, Meiser Ani only applies if the guy's an Ani. You don't have to give Meiser to an Ani if he's now rich, even if your initial intent was to do so when he was an Ani. Now he's not an Ani anymore. You can't give Meiser Ani to an Ashir. Okay, so the case changed. So fine. So then it just is the way that it is. Now, Mesu, what if one of these people died, especially the Kohen we're talking about over here? Tzarech litol reshus min hayorshin. we need to get permission from the Yorshin for this model to continue, that he is allowed to keep the food and not give it back. He's saying about the truma that I'm going to keep the truma every time I do my meiser. I keep X, and it deducts from the balance with you every time. So it says the Gemara that if the Kohen dies, the deal's off unless the Yorshim agree, and the guy who lent the money is out the money. The Gemara is going to discuss that. Look at the next line of the Mishnah. In Hilvan Bifnei Bezdin, only if this loan was put into place by Bezdin, then Eino Tzarach Litol Reshus Mina Yorshin, then he can keep it. And we'll also see in the Gemara there's a takana that he can give to any Kohen that he wants. We'll get there, but the Gemara here does say that if it's in front of Bezdin, he does not need to ask Reshus. And remember, Stan, he's not giving this money to anyone. He's keeping it as a reduction of balance. So yeah, but nevertheless, he does have to ask, and that's for another reason, which is that Yorshim aren't always responsible for paying the debts of their father. It's only true by karka, and it's not true by metaltalin. We'll speak about that more in the Gemara. So the Gemara says, opening up with a beautiful question, the Gemara says, wait 1 second. I'm a nice guy. I lent $1,000 to a Kohen. Every time I take meiser, I keep the Kohen portion and I deduct from his balance, $50 at times. That's going to take me 20 times to get to my $1,000. No problem. But how does this work that it isn't truma? When I'm mafresh, that food's truma, and then I can eat it as a Yisrael. I'm under an assumption that it is no longer truma. The Kohen never got it and gave it back to me as non-truma. He didn't cycle it out with chulin food. What is the halachic mechanism over here that makes it work that I, as the malveh, the lender, can simply keep what should be truma and eat it? I'm a Yisrael, I'm a regular Yid. A Zar is not allowed to eat truma. Beautiful question. The Gemara gives 3 answers. Says the Gemara, Amar Rab, b'mikare kuhuna ulavia, he knows them. That's an interesting answer. So basically, they have some kind of understanding. They know each other. I mean, maybe the Kohen is mevater from wherever he is. That's one possible answer. Ushmuel Amar, no, no, somebody's doing a kinyan on behalf of the Kohen. So I'm the malveh. The Kohen is the loveh, and some third party picks it up and says, I hereby say that this really isn't truma anymore, it belongs to you. And the third answer, Ula Amar, halfway down on the page, Hamani Reb Yossi hi the Amar, Asu es she'eno zoche ki zoche. The halacha l'maisa, there is magic pixie dust in play, and it doesn't matter what we think, what we feel. The Chachamim made a takana that in a case like this, the truma is no longer truma, and we don't need a transaction to lower its status from truma to chulin. It's just regular food at this point. And the Gemara says, why do we need 3 different answers? And so the Gemara responds that really every answer is difficult. Kulhu kirab lo amre. Shmuel and Ula don't hold like Rab because b'michri lo katani. The Mishnah doesn't say that they knew each other. Kishmuel lo ka'amre. We don't say like Shmuel. Perhaps Rav and Ula disagree with Shmuel, who says that someone else was mizake lo ka'amre. Why not? Because b'mizake lo katani. The Mishnah doesn't talk about mizake. And ke'ula nami lo amre. Maybe Rav and Shmuel don't agree with Ula because ki yechida lo mukmina. The shita of Rabbi Yossi is a shita yechida, and because it's a das yachid, perhaps Rav and Shmuel will disagree with Ula. Okay. Nevertheless, one way or the other, with one of these shitas, there's something happening over here that allows for me, the malveh, to simply withhold truma from the kohen, and I'm still allowed to eat it, and it reduces from the balance of debt between the malveh and the loveh. 2/3 of the way down on Lamed Amid Aleph, 4 lines before the wide lines, Tanu Rabbanon, a brisa that correlates to our Mishnah, similar, but we will see that there are a lot of additives, and from here till the end of the page, we'll be analyzing the brisa. And the brisa reads as follows, Tanu Rabbanon. The rabbis teach us in a brisa, Tosefta, actually, I'm corrected by the Maseches Hashas here, it's a Tosefta. Hamal v'mos esa kohen v'esa levi v'esa ani. I'm a nice guy, I'm a malveh. I lend to the people who are Kohanim, Levim, and or the Ani. And the payback model is Lios Mafresh Alein Michel Kan, that I'm just going to withhold really what I owe them, and it will deduct from whatever the balance is with them. Mafresh Alein Becheskas Shen Kayam, and we assume that they're alive. And as well, Uposek Imohen Kishar Hazol. We can also follow the market. What does that mean? Well, what that means is that let's say that what I'm holding back as truma is apples. I lent the guy $1,000 and I'm keeping apples. If the market value fluctuates on apples, I'm allowed to follow that market. So if today an apple is $1 and I collect 50 apples, that's for truma, deduct $50. If tomorrow it's 50 cents, different ballgame. My math equation, when I withhold truma from the Kohen or from the Levi or Meiser Ani, when I withhold, it's based on fair market value. Look in the Kelly Blue Books, whatever the equivalent is for agriculture. I don't even know if there is such a thing. Soybeans. I hear that on the news sometimes. Soybeans. They talk. I don't know if that's true of apples. I don't know how it works. Whatever is market valuable. So there we look at those things and we say, whatever the market value, okay, it's 20 cents. Okay, so I multiply 20 cents by the number of apples. If it's 3 apples, good, 60 cents reduced from the balance, no problem. Ve'ein bo mishum ribis, and even though I'm now taking a different number of apples because the market value changed, it's not ribis. It's not taking interest. If the price goes down and I take more apples, that's not ribis. I lent you $1,000. I'm only using apples as an equivalent to a dollar amount. Don't look at the apple volume and say, today you took too many apples. No, there's no din in ribis here. And also, ve'ein shvius mishamatiso, we don't have shmita removing this type of loan. This is a very unique type of loan, and it is not done in a regular way. We'll see more on this. V'im balachzor eino chozer, someone, we don't know who yet from this brisa, from the Tosefta. V'im balachzor eino chozer, a person is not allowed to be chozer. We don't yet know what this means. And nisyashu habaylim, if the baylim, the guy, the malveh, who lent the money, I lent you $1,000, and if I have yeush, because it's a drought, and every last piece of corn in my field is dead, and therefore I have no way to reduce the cost. If I have yeush, the whole deal is over. Then ein mafrishin alein, even if things grow back later, lefi she'ein mafrishin al ha'avud. So we have a halachic scenario of mindset that once I'm a yayish on my field, then our deal is off and I lose the balance with you. You just get to keep it. I have no other way to collect from you. Amar Mar, let's analyze each piece of this brisa, 2/3, a little bit more. Second line of the Y lines, 2/3, 3/4 of the way down. Amar Mar, we had said posek imon kishar hazol. Pshita, that should be obvious. Of course, we follow the market value. I didn't lend you apples. I lent you $1,000. Cares about the apples. I need the equivalent given back to me. The Gemara says, Hakamash Malan, that Afal Pisha lo pasak. Even if he didn't make the stipulation that the apples are going to follow market value, Kimisha pasak dami. It's as if you said it. Don't worry about it. We always follow market value in these odd scenarios. We said ve'ein bo mishum ribis because this isn't the normal ribis case. My time, lo yahiv. Since it were to be the case, like we just saw in the case of Avud, where there's Yeush Bailan, if he never had any payros and he wouldn't therefore withhold truma, therefore ki islay nami ein bo mishum ribis. Therefore, even if he were to have, it would not be a problem of ribis. And we had said ve'ein shvius mishamat. So because this is not a normal case, to lo karina be lo yigos, this is not a normal case of shmita. This type of loan will not have any din of shmita. The Kohen's not taking anything. I'm just keeping the apples and reducing the financial value from his balance. You're the love, I'm the malveh. He's not touching apples. So I'm just keeping things to lower my balance, and it's all based on market value. So it's number of apples times market value. 10 lines from the bottom. What did that line in the brisa mean? Amar Rav Papa, lo shanu ella bal habayis bekoin. Aval koin bebal habayis im balachzor lachzor. A Kohen can be choser on this type of transaction. Where do we see this from? It's not. Nasan lo ma'os, v'lo mashach emenu peros. If a person gives money, but there was no mashicha on the fruits, yachol lachzor bo. And that's a raya that a Kohen can be choser. This, of course, would require more research to learn that Mishnah in context. We're going to look at it at its face value. It's a text proof, and that is what the Gemara says this Mishnah is doing. We had said that if the Bailam have Yeush because their field is completely dry, nothing grew, so the guy in his own mind says, Yeush, we're done. Yeush is a very powerful thing. We also have this in regards to Hilchos Nida. Fascinating thing, that if during the Sheva Nekiyim, let's say a woman has a kesem on the undergarment, and it's a white undergarment, which is typical for Sheva Nekiyim, and the husband thinks, oh, for sure she's a nida again. For sure we're starting over. The din is that even if the psak is that kesem is mutter, they lose their shevanakiyim. The husband is miyayish. So we always tell chasanim and kalas when they're getting married, if you see a kesem, keep your mindset shevanakiyim until a rav paskins for you. Don't change your mind. She's perfectly fine until the Eivishter says otherwise. Just leave it be. Otherwise, they could lose her here too, although clearly in a very different context. If there's going to be a case scenario where there's Yeush, he's not allowed to then take the miracle growth that happens afterwards. Unbelievable. Everything was dead. The ground was parched. 5 days later, corn grows. No, you can't use that anymore because you had Yeush. You're done. Says the Gemara, Pshita, that should be pretty obvious. After all, if he's miyayish, then the whole deal is off. Says the Gemara, Lo tzricha de akun. We're not talking about avud where there's no fruit. I kind of foreshadowed the answer. It's de akun. Rashi here at the bottom, 5 lines from the bottom says Lo tzricha de akun. B'shah sheyavshu v'nisyayish kfar ala b'kanen. Now there's more things growing out of the ground. Your brain said there's avud. So the Gemara is giving a chiddush that even if it grew after your yeush, once your yeush is done, you're done. Ma'udatema, I might have thought that akanta, that the stems that are growing out of the ground are worthwhile. Milsahi, kamash malan, that they're not. Okay, another brisa, all connected to the same Mishnah, although it's not part of our Mishnah, obviously. This too is a Tosefta in this parak in Gittin. Tanya, 3 lines from the bottom on Lamed Amud Aleph. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Omer, Hamal v'mos es hakohen v'es halevi bibezdin v'mesu. This case is more articulate. If we have a case scenario where I, as a nice guy, lend money to a Kohen or a Levi, and they die, Mafresh alein b'chezkas oso hashevet. Stan, this is what you were talking about. We keep it in the family. Kohanim to Kohanim, Leviim to Leviim. We have to still give over our appropriate meiser and truma. V'es ha'ani bebezdin meis. If we're dealing with a poor person and I made a loan to him in Bezdin, in front of Bezdin, and then the ani died, Mafresh olav b'chezkas ani Yisrael. We can give to any ani. Doesn't matter who it is. And Rav Achi Omer b'chezkas ani olam. He's got a broad tent. It's kind of like that synagogue I was talking about. Super broad tent. That's why we don't record everything that happens here. And the Gemara says that one shita says that if the ani dies after the deal is made, that perhaps the money should only go to poor people who are Jews. And the other one says ani olam. So says the Gemara, Mai Beinai. What's the difference between these two shitas? As we turn to the top of Lamed Amud Beis, the Gemara says, Ika Beinaihu aniye kusiyim. We know that the kusim are people who were forced into giur. Take a look at Rashi for a little bit of history. Let's look. Okay, so let's look at the end of the second line of Rashi. He says, according to one approach, kusim are gerei emes, u'latanakama gerei arios heim. They converted because of lions. And that is an insincere type of. So what's the nafkamina between the two shitas? According to the shita that says that we have to still give the meiser ani, that's only to proper Jews, and the kusim are not proper Jews; they're gerei arios. They converted because of lions. Masha'ain came the shita of Rav Achi, where he says it's aniye olam. Oh, that's different. That's because he assumes that they're gerei emes, the kusim. Very good. And in other contexts, we know that kusim are treated as goyim. So yeah, it's very difficult. You always have to know the context of how a kusi is being used in the Gemara, because on a dime, they could be talking about a Jew or talking about this a full yid, a rios, or they're really not, or a total guy.
Does that apply to their children also?
What?
If they're living as Jews, are their children still considered?
We follow the mother. This guy said to me today, he said, this guy said to me today, by the way, but if you're gerei arios, it's a zero.
So their children,
they're goyim, they're mamish goyim. This guy said to me today, by the way, can I ask you some other questions? Will you do a bris for LGBTQ families? I'm like, if the mother's a yid, the baby's a yid. Then we don't look at gender. That's not my problem. I mean, the baby has to be a boy, but otherwise it's totally fine. I said, I've done that many times, no problem at all. And he says, what about patrilineal descent? I'm like, oh, do you want to put the landmine under my feet?
Yeah.
So I said, well, according to traditional sources, we always follow the mother. And in Jewish law, the fact that a father is considered a halachic assumption. It's a chazaka. Takachu, we saw this in the Masechta, and I quote this all the time to the fry crowd because it's a beautiful marimako. Said the fact that a father is a chazaka, so we always follow the mom. If their family is patrilineal descent, I tell them openly, we follow the mom, and therefore the mother is not of Jewish descent. The baby is not. I can still do the circumcision, l'shem gerus, if you want it. That way, if he ever needs to convert down the road, this counts for that. In an appropriate rabbinical court, I sign the shtar. I write ubelvaji is gair bevezdin hagun in Hebrew, so that when a bezdin sees that, they're like, oh, okay, somebody called Phil to verify that this actually happened. Okay, worked out nicely. But he's a goy. He's a goy d'oraisa. If the mother's a goy, then the mother's a goy. That's just what it is. All right, back in the brisa. The brisa picks up again on the top of Laman Amud Beis. He'eshir ha'ani, as we spoke about already. What if an ani becomes wealthy? So ein mafresh shalav v'zacha hala b'mash biyado. You can't be mafresh meiser ani to him. And remember, the ani was the guy who got the loan. Remember. So v'zacha hala b'masha biyado, and he doesn't even have to give the money back because the whole setup was an odd setup, and he just gets to keep the money. Pasha just gets to keep it. No need to pay back because the payback model that the malve agreed to was deducting meiser ani from the total. He's an ashir now. You can't give meiser ani. The whole relationship is over, and the ashir ani, he's even richer. He's $1,000 richer. So the Rabbanan ask a beautiful, subtle kasha on this, and they say as follows: Ma'ishna lemisa. Why is it that when the Kohen or Levi died, we said we keep it in the family, we keep it in the shevet, but when it comes to this case, to the ani, Ma'ishna lemisa da'avid takanta, the Chachamim made a caveat. Okay, fine, I know the Kohen and Levi that you lent to died, but the money still stays within the shevet. But Ma'ishna le'ashirus, when the meiser ani can no longer be given because the usher became wealthy, they're delo avid takanta. Why would you say that? It's inconsistent. So it says the Gemara, misa shchicha, ashirus lo shchicha. People dying is very common. People getting very wealthy is not very common. What? Death still has. That is a great line, David Merzel. Great line. Death still has the lead. But I do wonder. I'm not saying the Chachamim would ever change what they say, but we live in a culture where there's more millionaires than ever before, and much more easily than ever before.
It's a very fair question.
And I don't know how we say ashirus. I mean, you're right by the numbers. More people die than are millionaires.
One doesn't think what's really up.
No, not necessarily. We have to figure out the lumdus of each.
What is shchiach?
Correct. What does shchiach mean? And if we even say miyut hamatzui,
Usher doesn't mean wealthy. It means not immediate stuff.
it's not demach sarach. Right. He's not correct.
The bar is not.
The bar is very low. That's correct. But that makes this Gemara even more complicated because ashirus lo shchicha means that above the poverty line is.
To dig yourself out, I guess.
Yeah. As someone who's paying tuition, my tuition next year is $127,000 without scholarships. Anyways, frustration things later. Amar Rav Papa, Hainu da'amrei inshi. This is what people say. Chav rachmis asher. If somebody says that his friends died, asher I can verify. Is asher, but if he became wealthy, lo se asher. This is a very rhymey type of line. But if a person says they got wealthy, it's a little bit questionable. Maybe he's wearing a more expensive suit than he should, but he got it at Suits 2020. So we all know where it came from. You shop at the wrong rack in Suits 2020. In the back, they're $99. 10 lines down, Lamed Amud Beis, heading to the Mishnah on Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph Tanya, the Brisa writes, Rabbi Omer, Yorshin Sheyorshu. What an odd line. We're talking about inheritors, the children who inherited. So says the Gemara, Umik Ika Yorshin Delo Yarte? Is there such a thing as someone who inherited who hasn't inherited? What is with the odd language? It's a very strange thing to say. When he says Yarshim Sheyorshu, he means children who inherited land. When you inherit land, then you have a chiyuv d'oraisa to pay your father's bills. But below Sheyorshu Ksafim, if you got metaltalin, if you got a check, whatever the case may be, so those things, says the Gemara doesn't say it's to be shown him do. That's only a din d'Rabbanan. That a person has to pay back their father's bills with metaltalin, with cash, that's only a din d'Rabbanan, not a chiyuv d'oraisa. That was the hint in the Mishnah that said that if the Kohen or Levi dies, you sometimes have to ask rishus from the Yorshim. It depends what's going on. If the kids got karka from the father, they're obligated to pay back. If it's ksafim or metaltalin, they're only chayav midrabanan. What?
You would think it would be the opposite.
Why?
Because if you have land, it's already a procedure to do it. If you have cash, right?
It's not easy to liquidate, but it's a real Yerusha. It's a much more stable inheritance than metaltalin. You know how many people in the NFL are now poor after they leave. The cash you can plow through. But if somebody gives you real estate, then you're whatever you'd say and it's hard to sell it. So, you keep it as a profit. Oh, what was this from Ksubis? Say again.
Something, but yeah, I mean, can't speak for anybody else, but I don't think you were allowed to pay the ksuba with land. I think it.
But it needed to be set aside in something about that thought that was really liquid, wasn't it? No. There's something.
Look back and let me know.
I think it's going to be paid, like you said, he doesn't have to go through the trouble of liquidating. Right. But I don't know that it had to be like, in an escrow account. It's your problem to come up with.
Right.
It.
Okay, I don't know. Quarter of the way down. Amar of Yonasan, hiniach malo machat. If the father left the sons a small piece of land, the size of a needle, it doesn't mean the size of a needle, but a small parcel of land, gova malo machat. Then the debtors, the people who are owed, what are they, debtors? The debtors are the ones who are owed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then the people who are owed money can go collect. Malo kardom, if it was a larger piece of property that the father left the son, then gova malo kardom, then the people who are collecting can collect accordingly. Rav Yochanan Amar, what sounds like an impossibility, even if the father only left a small parcel of land, gova malo kardom, the collectors can collect even more in cash than the size of the land. They can just keep going back because the father, let's say, owes them $1,000. So every month they go and say, either give us the land or give us the $100 worth of land. They'll do it 10 times till they collect the money. So even though what the father left was malo machat, which was very small, l'maisa, it's land, and the children are obligated to pay the debts of karka to the debtors, to the people who the father owes money to, so they can keep coming back until either give me the land or give me the money. So if the land is $100, it's malo machat, it's small, and the father really owes this guy $1,000. Come back 10 times every month, whatever, and he collects the money. This is something that happened with Abaye. Take a look in Rashi. We don't have a lot of time. Take a look in Rashi if you want to see that, but it's the same idea. Okay, Tana Rabbanan. This is the hard part for today. Yisrael sha'amar lelevi. Yisrael says to a Levite, Meiser yesh lecha biyadi. You have Meiser in my hands, which means I owe you Meiser. Okay. Ein chosheshin letrumas Meiser shabo. This makes no sense on its face because we're going to question it. It doesn't make any sense. We're not concerned about trumas Meiser. What if he says, instead of Meiser without specifying an amount, he says, and we are a third of the way down, Kur Meiser yesh lecha biyadi. I have a specific amount of Meiser that belongs to you. Then choshesh and the trumas meiser sheba. We are concerned about trumas meiser. Says the Gemara, Maika Amar, like very, very, very difficult to understand this without any explanation. The Gemara gives a couple of responses. Amar Abaye hachi kamar. This is what this cryptic brisa means. Yisrael she'amar lelevi. A Yisrael says to a Levi, Meiser yesh lecha biyadi. I have Meiser that really I should give to you, but I want to keep it. V'heilach damav. I have $20 worth of Meiser that I want to give you. I want to keep it. Here's $20. Ein chosheshin. We are not concerned. Shema aso trumas Meiser al makom acher. We're not concerned that he will misappropriate these funds, which function as Meiser, to replace trumas Meiser from another pile of food. We don't assume the Levi will do that, but if it was a specific amount, kur meiser yesh lecha biyadi v'heilach damav, if we know the amount of money that the Yisrael has that belongs to the Levi, and he says, I'm not even going to pay you back, here's the cash, choshesh, we are concerned that the Levi will shema asa trumas meiser al makom acher, that he will misappropriate the funds from meiser to trumas meiser, which are not the same thing. And says the Gemara, that Abaye is an impossible answer. Atu birshi askinan deshakli dami umashvale trumas meiser. You think that this Levi is going to do something that's not yashar? He's a frum guy. We do not assume that people are Rishoyim. That's not a normal assumption. Ella, says the Gemara, Amar Rab Misharshia Berei de Rab Idi Hachi Kamar. We need to try something a little bit different to try and understand this cryptic brisa. 2/3 of the way down, Yisrael Sha'amar Leben Levi, adding in another generation. A Yisrael says to the son of a Levi, Meiser le'avicha biyadi. I have meiser that I really owe to your father. Heilach damav, take the money, I'm keeping the items. Ein chosheshin shema aso aviv trumas meiser al makom acher. We're not going to be choshesh that the father misappropriated the funds because it's no specific amount. He can't even do the math equation. We don't know what the math equation is. But kur meiser le'avicha biyadi beheilach damav, if the amount that the Israel told the son of the Levi was a specific amount, then then in such a case we are concerned. And the Gemara pushes back the same way, slightly different language, but a similar way, meaning Rav Misharshia, how is your answer any better than Abaye's? He's still separating incorrectly. Are you saying that there's a case scenario where this person is going to be Torem in a way which is not appropriate? Can't be. So says the Gemara, third answer, 10 lines from the bottom, 12 lines from the bottom, Elo Amar Avashi Hachi Kamar. Ben Yisrael, the child of Yisrael, Sha'amar LeLevi, so he's saying to his father's friend who's a Levi, Kach Amar Li Abba, my father said, Maisa, Maaser Lach Biyadi or Maaser LeAvicha Biyadi. He's either talking to the father or to the son, and he says that if I know that I have money as a Yisrael that I really owe to you, the Levi, this is the opposite. Choshesh and the trumas meiser shabo kaven de lo kitz, because there isn't a fixed amount. Lo hava metakin lebalabayis. But if he said kur meiser lach biyadi, that I do have a fixed amount, o kur meiser laavicha biyadi, ein choshesh and the trumas meiser shabo. Why are we not concerned that he'll misappropriate kaven de kitz tikune tekane balabayis? Then it will be fixed up the right way. Asks the Gemara, and this will be our final question for the day, and will lead into a somewhat multi-lined answer, but simple from here on out. If you're saying that we're not concerned about Meiser and Trumas Meiser when a Yisrael is holding the product, is a Yisrael allowed to be the one who's Torem Trumas Meiser? He can do the Hafrasha? Says the Gemara in Abba Elazar ben Gamla. This follows the sheet of Abba Elazar ben Gamla. The Tanya, 2 lines from the bottom on Lamed Amud Beis. Abba Elazar ben Gamla Omer. This is to be considered your truma, and the word truma is a plural word. Turning to the top of Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph, Vishtei trumos hakosav medaber. We are talking about 2 different trumos. Achas truma gedola, achas trumas meiser, and kishem shetruma gedola niteles beomed uvemachshava. Just like a person can separate truma gedola beomed with approximation uvemachshava just by thinking about it. Kach trumas meiser niteles beomed uvemachshava. It's not just true by truma gedola; it's also true by trumas meiser. And then this last piece is the answer to our question about how a Yisrael can separate. 4 lines down, Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph. Just like it's the case that a balabais can be torem truma gedola, he can also trumas meiser. So basically, over the last Amud, we'll just do a brief summary on the outside, is we're talking about a very, very unique loan. This unique loan is one where I lend money to a Kohen, Levi, or Yisrael, and the agreement that we have is I'll pay you back by withholding payment to you on, respectively, what belongs to the Kohen, what belongs to the Levi, what belongs to the Ani, and a few iterations. What if he dies? Do we assume market value? All of that was discussed today. We'll stop right here. On Shabbos, we'll pick up at 5 p.m., starting with this new Mishnah on Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph. Wishing you all a beautiful night.
My question was a little bit